Do you see this man? This man is BigTugg with two G's, by the way. As a man who likes to indulge in the finer things in life and consume gobbledygook online, this is one man that I go to quite routinely, time and time again, to ingest all of the gobbledygook I possibly can. And something you need to know about me, I love history. History is amazing. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, is there a simple way that you can maneuver a lot of gobbledygook about history into one video? Well, today we have found out that yes, in fact, he can. We're going to be watching The Stupidest Wars in History by BigTugg.
I had a teacher that we will call Colonel Chapstick. He taught us about the T-tax, the ancient Egyptians, and all the other pointless bullshit they cram into your brain in the American education system. Sometimes he would open the floor to questions, and sometimes we would ask about war, and every time he would answer those questions. One day, one of the shittier kids in my class asked him what the worst thing about war was. And then the Colonel's eyes glossed over, and he stared at the back of the classroom wall as a child would at his father's casket before muttering the words, "The smell. They don't prepare you for the smell." Jesus Christ. That little tidbit of information has stuck with me for 12 years and counting, but it just goes to show how much of a hell war can become. Now, that being said, war, for lack of a better term, can be silly sometimes. I'm not here to downplay the plight of any war-torn country on Earth, but when you start shooting bazookas at emus, you kind of lose the plot a little bit. So let's take a trip down
I know he's going to get to it, but yeah, they're Australia lost a war to emus, and what is just he'll get into it, but it's actually kind of fucking fascinating.
Lane and talk about what war is, where it comes from, and just how weird it can get. I also wanted to wear a fancy military outfit for this video, but if I was wearing fatigues, those are usually green, and I'm in front of a green screen, and then I would have to buy blues, which are like the fancy thing military people wear, and I feel like I would get death threats for doing that, so we're just gonna, I'm in civilian clothing now.
Civvies! He's in civvies, chap! Clap for him!
So I don't think I have to explain this, but war is pretty much universally despised amongst every human being on Earth, I would assume. Yet it has been a constant part of human history ever since, I don't know, since we've learned that you could throw a rock really hard.
Also, picture this, right? Especially if you live in America. Most of America's history is just us fighting. And to the point where we got so tired of fighting other people, we got so tired of winning and succeeding, that we decided to beat our own ass. Crazy, right?
Recorded war took place in Mesopotamia in 2700 BC. I don't know why we include that E now. But thousands of years before that, we have evidence of people building 10-foot walls around their cities for defense. And I don't know about you, but I wouldn't build 10-foot walls around my house unless I knew someone was trying to kill me, or my cat. The bow and arrow was invented around 10,000 BCE.
Oh, interestingly enough about this invention right here. See, the bow and arrow simply was made because people didn't want to get up close to each other. So this man right here himself, look at him. He decided, fuck that guy way over here, but I don't want to go way over there because that's a walk. So he thought to himself, let me just throw the knife. But that wasn't too good. So he came up with this. I'm telling you, revolutionary stuff right here.
And yes, it can be used for hunting, but there's also no way that thing wasn't used for human-on-human violence. Yeah, you can kill some food and eat it, but also, imagine if Grug comes back to the camp and he's bragging about that woolly mammoth he took down and he's gonna steal your cave chick. You can't tell me you wouldn't throw a quick stick through his chest. There's no cops around. This isn't the Bible. So why is war so ingrained in human society? Psychologists think that there is rewards inherent in conflict. As individuals, war apparently makes us feel alive. For some people, not for me. I panic in 1v2 when I'm playing CS. But apparently it gives us purpose and meaning that we perceive as something greater than ourselves. And finding this meaning along with others in your group gives us a sense of belonging in a larger community. And I know what you're thinking, Tucker, that sounds like a religion. And I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not going to talk about it anymore.
I mean, it didn't like war tribes were a thing, not at all.
Of course, there's also the spoils of war, the goodies you get from killing somebody. Governments wage wars over resources and strategic footholds all the time. Shout out every American war I've ever been a
Don't forget the women. People used to fight back in the day to get also the women.
Alive for. It's kind of an old thing to wage a war over, ideologies at this point. When was the last time someone fought a war over strictly principles? America's not fighting a war to prove anything. We just want shit. Do you have shit? We would like that shit, please. Here.
That looks like oil. Wait a minute. Hold on.
Missiles. Thank you kindly. War over strictly principles. America's not fighting a war to prove anything. We just want shit. Do you have
See this? We are going to strategically transport that to where we are currently. That's just how that works. See this? This is looking like oil. That shit is mine.
Shit, we would like that shit, please. Here are some missiles. Thank you kindly. The American Indian Wars lasted for 250 years and ended with Europeans just taking an entire country because they wanted it. And some of them said because God said they could have that, but everyone says that whenever they're doing this shit. Of course,
honestly,
there are some wars with legitimate causes, like World War II. That was a bad one. I don't want to ruffle any feathers, but I want to make this statement right now that I think Nazis are bad, and I'm honestly happy Hitler died. I'm gonna come.
It's funny because, like, yeah. Obviously, no one likes that. No one likes Hitler. He was kind of a bad dude, kind of a bad and rude dude at the same time, you know what I'm saying?
I know, it's shocking. Even though I was being incredibly brave and handsome right there, it goes without saying that we have to join a war every time someone's being unbelievably shitty to another group of people. But for every World War II, there's a Trojan War. The Trojan War was really like an episode of Real Housewives for Greek mythology. And if that sounds fake, well, that's because most of the written knowledge we have about the Trojan War came from the Greek poet Homer. His epic poem, the Iliad, was written 500 years after the war actually took place, and it was basically a final written document of an oral poem that was spoken for over 5 centuries. It was kind of like the Bible, or HPV. So we know that it happened, but the facts just got a bit flowery over time. Just imagine like 1,000 years from now, the only records of the Iraq War we have is from a really long Maya Angelou poem. Scholars do believe that the Trojan War actually happened. This isn't like a fully made up story, but I maintain that the real contribution this war gave us was the term Trojan horse. You know that story where the Trojans were like, yo, we got you a horse, and the other people were like, I don't think we need that, but...
Was Homie naked just then?
Trojans were like, yo, we got you
Homie's missing some stuff here. A little bit. Homie's missing some stuff. But I digress.
a horse, and the other people were like, I don't think we need that, but honestly, you could always use a giant horse. And then a bunch of Trojans were inside the horse, and in the middle of the night they...
Oh, so we all know how this works. What I want to know is what, who, how, why. Like, who, like, this seems like a bunch of drunk people got together and was like, let's just see if this works. And it did. Like, what? Who, how, who does, why? Who, I want to see the conversation between the dude who was like, look, here's this present, just take it, no questions asked, or whatever, or was it like he had to negotiate for them to grab it? Because, like, who the fuck, whatever.
Popped out and killed everybody, so it was a fake play. That's why a Trojan virus is called a Trojan virus, because it seems innocuous and then it gets in your computer and it messes about. Now, historians say that the Trojan horse story never actually happened, which is messing me up. It's like finding out that bears don't actually sleep for all of winter, or that my Uncle Ricky didn't go on a 1.5 year long vacation. So yeah, a lot of the Trojan War is myth, and a lot of the reasons why it actually happened were really dumb, which generally sums up war as a whole, actually. It's stupid, and the historical narratives usually go to the winners. And the winners are usually just as stupid as the losers. But 100%. You know what's not stupid? Me getting paid. Roll the ad, baby. Old people smell good. Okay, now that I have your attention, let me explain. When I was a youngin', old people in my life always smelled fantastic. My grandpa always smelled like sweet leather and mahogany, and my great aunt always smelled like lilac and fresh.
This must be like an old rich people thing, because the old people that were around me smelled of death quite frequently. So. Yay!
Linens. And I always just thought that's what adults smell like. But no, it's actually because they mastered the art of the curated fragrance. And now both you and I can achieve the same level of greatness by using today's sponsor, Scentbird. Scentbird is a fragrance subscription service that lets you try a new designer fragrance every month for just $16.95. This month, I decided to try Themin Radiant Leather and Next Nihilo Blue Talisman. The Blue Talisman literally smells like making business deals. It makes me feel so masculine and powerful. I feel like I'm gonna start a monopoly on accident. And the Regent Leather is exactly what I'm going for. It smells exactly like my grandfather, and he was a cool dude. I went to my girlfriend's house, and she said, you smell handsome. Did you know you could smell handsome? Well, now
you can. Also, I can... Let me grab that one, and I'll grab... What's another good one? No, I was... Oh, this one. Oh, no, fuck. Oh, shit. Oh, fuck, I dropped it. Alright, so... Scentbird is nice and all, but I actually am a bit of a cologne head, or a frag head, as apparently they're called. So, he's probably not going to mention them, but, like, I might as well. If you do want to get into cologne, 2 really good ones to start out with, especially for this upcoming fall season. From the House of Alexandria, it's Alexandria Fragrances, I would recommend Havez. 1984, probably the best cologne I have ever smelled in my entire life. That shit is amazing. It is fucking fire, bro. But the next one, and I don't know, because like this one's kind of like hit or miss. If you've ever smelled oud before, I feel like you're gonna like this one. This is Latafa by Assad. It's absolutely the bee's knees, my man. And if you ever have a time to grab something, I would grab one of these two. They are phenomenal.
You can, thanks to Scentbird. Remember when I said it would cost you $16.95 for this kind of deal? Well, that was a fib. It actually cost you $8. Only $8 for your first month. Can you believe that? With each fragrance you try out with Scentbird, you get a 30-day supply, so you can try them all on without committing to a full-size bottle. And those things can cost between $300 and $500. The full-size ones, we don't got time for all that.
Well, hold on. The really expensive ones, you don't need to get. I get clones of the cologne that I get, and there's one that I have that's supposed to be Creed Adventus. It's supposed to be a clone of Creed Adventus for $30. Smells the exact same, performs just a bit better in my opinion, and obviously a fraction of the cost, because Creed Adventus, as of recording, I think is now like at the lowest price it's ever been, at $300 a bottle. So yeah, we're not doing that. We're not buying that.
They have over 700 colognes, perfumes, and unisex options, so there's a little something for everybody. And it says here they offer affordable and flexible subscription plans, and you can also skip or cancel your subscription at any time, my goodness. So if any of this tickled your fancy, go to Scentbird.com and use my coupon code 55BigTugg for 55% off your first month. That's 55BigTugg. Just $8 for your first order. Scentbird. Smelly, more like scenty. I should have tried a little bit harder with that one.
Oh, speaking of which, I don't know if he's going to go into it, but there was a war that lasted, I think it was like 30 minutes, and it was literally considered a war. And if I'm remembering correctly, it was just like someone sieging a castle, essentially, or a fortification. And I don't think it was too long ago. Well, history speaking, I don't think it was like too long ago. I'm pretty sure it was like in the 1800s or something, which seems like a long way. But like when you talk about war and like everywhere, I mean, that's not really that long ago. But yeah, like 30 fucking minutes. It was like 32 minutes or some shit.
So the funny thing about stupid is that it's in the eyes of the beholder. Of all the wars fought over resources or power or a really hot lady that everyone's trying to bang, some are fought over things that are so trivial that you forget that a group of 18-year-old men are gonna die for the cause. That was a lot funnier when I wrote it down. When I said it, it didn't seem that funny. For example, we have the War of the Oaken Bucket. The Oaken War is a cautionary tale of military power, hubris, and buckets. Like the things you buy at Home Depot. So Italy didn't become a unified country until 1871, which is shocking to an American like me. But in Italy, there was a lot of spicy meatballs between its territories in the medieval period. In 1325, a war broke out between Bologna and Modena. I'm assuming that's how they want me to pronounce Bologna here. And that war was started over a bucket. It's a little more complicated, but it was a bucket. In reality, the war came from tensions that started 2 centuries earlier, much like anything else that happens in Europe. Long story short, Bologna was horny for the Pope to rule, and Modena supported the Holy Roman Emperor. And if you're not a Catholic or a history buff, those were 2 different people, I promise. The ensuing 200 years saw some minor battles and skirmishes, but the straw that broke the camel's back was not a straw, but a bucket. Legend has it that a group of Modenese people snuck into Bologna at one night and stole a bucket. They just took a bucket, and when Bologna found out that their bucket had been jacked, they demanded a return, a swift return of that bucket. Modena, in a savvy strategical move, responded with, "Fuck you, dorks. This is our bucket now. You probably weren't even using it. Why are you crying so much?" So Bologna decided to declare all-out war, a well-thought-out and smart strategy. Bologna sent out 32,000 troops to get their bucket back, which, to be fair, seems a bit much. I can't see how 3 dudes couldn't accomplish the same task. But since the Modena pranksters only had an army of 7,000 soldiers, I understand what the congealed meat team was going for here. But here's the rub. The Bolognese people were not a classically trained group of soldiers. They were just weirdo Jesus freak militia dudes, which is way less scarier if they don't have automatic weapons. Meanwhile, Modena had a professionally trained army. So despite what the numbers would make you assume, the Oscar Maia team got their ass kicked. I didn't mean to go into that accent. All told, the war saw 2,000 soldiers die, or kick the bucket, if you see what I'm going for. Bologna called off their attack, but they never got their bucket back. In fact, Modena stole another bucket from them, just to be dicks, I guess. And to add insult to injury, Modena displayed the bucket in the bell tower of their cathedral. And to this day, the bucket is still on display in Modena. Kind of badass in a middle school bully kind of way. Moving down the list of silly-ass wars, we have the Golden Stool War. There's this old saying that the sun never sets on the British Empire. That's because between the 18th and 20th century, the British Empire controlled about 25% of the Earth's land.
Oh, yeah, I was about to say, yeah, it was about 25%. As you can see, this is essentially it. And now think about it, right? All of this is gone, right? Oh, and blah, 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 those two. And, right, and, so I think it's kind of funny that apparently that England has their own Independence Day from itself. Like, that shit just went everywhere. So, what I would like you to do, if you get a chance, look up Independence Days across the world. You'll see all of these show up, and you'll see where and why all of them happen. And it's from the exact same place.
And mass. And that little factoid can do a number on an entire nation's ego. So when they showed up to the West African Ashanti Empire in 1900, they expected the red carpet to be rolled out for them. Only that the red carpet for the Ashanti's people was actually a golden stool. The golden stool is a sacred symbol of the Ashanti nation that represents the soul of their people. It was believed to have descended from heaven in a cloud of white dust, landing in the lap of the first Ashanti king. When British colonial administrator Frederick Hodgson, what a name, arrived in Ashanti, he was really pissed at the Ashanti people didn't present him with the stool. He gave a speech where he asked, "Why have you relegated me to this ordinary chair?" A sentence that truly only a British person could speak. As par for the course for imperialism, Hodgkins neglected to realize the importance of the stool to the Ashanti people. This wasn't a stool that royalty sat in. Like, this thing never touched the ground. They would always put a blanket under it. It was very important. And when it wasn't being used, they believed that souls passing by would use it to rest. So you demanding to plop your big white ass down in this stool is like me asking to snort your grandfather's ashes, an insane request made only by assholes. It got to the point where the Ashanti people were willing to let the British exile their king, Prehem the First, sorry if I fucked that up, rather than just let him sit down in the stool. This didn't stop the white boy from wanting to sit down in the seat, and it led to an extremely petty situation. The Ashanti people hid the stool from Hodgkins, and for the next 6 months, a war raged on while the British people were looking for it. 2,000 Ashanti people and 1,000 British troops died during this event. Hodgkins never found the chair, and the entire war was mocked by British Parliament, saying, as something like the quest for the Holy Grail. But
it's crazy how some pompous ass dude from another side of the country, another side of the planet, came over and was like, "Oh, that looks like a right proper stool. Let me sit down." They were just like, "No." So 3,000 people had to die. Fair enough.
I mean, imagine being a British soldier bleeding out on a battlefield for a fight about a stool that your boss wanted to put his pimply ass in. That would make me lose my mind. I would just do opium instead, I think. Oh, here's a fun one. Let's talk about the Pastry War. The Pastry War was fought from the neighboring kingdoms of the Debbies and the Royal Drakes. Both of these tribes were in fact—
God, look at the honker on this guy. That's crazy. Homeboy can smell your thoughts with that thing. Look at it. Jesus Christ. Oh, but he can smell Jesus Christ with this thing. God damn. This man sucks up all the air. Jesus.
not real and just name
Squidward
brands of
knows.
American cake companies, but I hope you fell for that for a second. That makes you stupid and me really smart. It was actually a conflict between France and Mexico that happened between 1838 and 1839. But it actually started in 1828 when a military coup destroyed a large part of Mexico City. Monsieur Raymontel, a French pastry chef operating a bakery in Mexico, claimed that during the coup, Mexican officers had looted his shop. He asked Mexican officials for 60,000 pesos in return for the damages, even though his but when you're putting in an insurance claim, you might as well try and make the most out of it. His demands weren't met, obviously, so he did what any good snitch would do and went directly to the King of France. And in true bureaucratic fashion, it took a whole 10 years to get that message to the king, but a letter can only make it so fast to another continent before planes, I guess. But in 1838, King Louis Philippe used this complaint along with the stack of similar complaints by French nationals in Mexico to demand 600,000 pesos from the Mexican government. Again, Mexico refused to pay, which in hindsight was nearly nearsighted move. So the French blockaded Veracruz, and the pastry wars had begun. I understand why they called it the pastry wars, but that seems like a huge understatement to me. I mean, first of all, the pastries were only like a small part of it, like a very small part of it. And secondly, if I died during something called the pastry wars, I can only assume the other warriors in Valhalla would be really mean to me and probably beat me up. Mexican general Antonio
100%.
Lopez de Santa Anna came out of retirement for this war. He was known to many as the Napoleon of the West, which, to be fair, is a pretty badass title,
pretty
but
dope.
unfortunately, he lost his left leg during this croissant crusade. It was amputated and buried, but apparently Antonio was not happy with the service that went along with burying his legs because he dug it up 4 years later, then placed it in a crystal vase and reburied with a full-fledged ceremony that included cannons, poems, speeches, and prayers. Man, what an insane person.
Wow, what a God. What a dick, bro. It's just your leg.
And of all people, the British are the ones who brokered a peace deal, which is like, if historically, they're not the ones doing that. It's just very out of character. The
Yeah,
peace
that's not
deal
them at
said
all.
that Mexico had to pay the 600,000 pesos that France asked for originally. But of course, they didn't pay it. Seems to be a pretty strong through line in the story. And this led to another full-blown war in 1861 when France invaded Mexico, eventually leading to Cinco de Mayo. There was a purpose to this story. And now to celebrate this victorious battle, Americans all across this great nation get drunk on tequila and wear offensive sombreros and don't know anything about the history of the day they're celebrating. God bless the French.
I was about to say, that sounds like a 100% American thing to do.
Of things that Americans don't understand, let's talk about the football war. It's crazy to me how little Americans
This was kind of crazy. I don't know if he's going to go to the death totals for it, but it was actually very insane.
care about soccer when, and in the rest of the world, it causes extreme unrest. Just the fact that I'm calling it soccer and not football would probably create an entire riot in a bar somewhere if I left this country. To put it in perspective, just imagine if every American football game was played between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, you know,
Jeez.
there will be riots every single night. In 1985, 35 fans died rioting in Belgium before the European Cup. That's right,
Yep.
before the fucking cup began. In 1964, Peru supporters lost their minds when a ref disallowed a goal, paving the way for Argentina to win the match. After the match, a riot broke out and 318 people died. But the craziest soccer conflict that ever happened wasn't a riot, it was a full-blown war. El Salvador and Honduras played a bunch of qualifying matches for the World Cup in the summer of 1969. There were a lot of political tensions between the two countries at the time, so things were hot, and when the two teams met, the bad blood transcended the field, or the pitch. I know some of the lingo. The fan mercilessly harassed their opponents, riots broke out in front of the players' hotels, the Salvadorian fans reportedly set fire to the Honduras stadium, and in what might be the most brutal takedown of an opponent in sports history, before the second match in El Salvador, a dirty rag was flown instead of the Honduras flag. Powerful shit talking without saying a word. El Salvador
Honestly.
claimed that 12,000 Salvadorians had been forced to flee Honduras in the days following the second match because of the tension, and a month later, war were declared. The war only lasted about 4 days, but 3,000 people were killed, and it's
Yep.
estimated that some 300,000 El Salvadorians were displaced. Ultimately, the football war would lead to the El Salvador Civil War, which cost upwards of 800,000 lives. So, sports, I'm not good at them.
See how crazy that works? Just one thing can lead to another, can lead to another, can lead to death. God, humans are great.
But they don't seem to do anything good for anybody. I think we should probably give up on sports as a whole. Thank you. Let's talk about all the wars that were silly while killing hundreds of humans and also animals. We'll talk about killing animals.
Trust me, that's gonna do better from
You'd
here.
think the fact that humans slipping out of the food chain would mean we would never have to go to war with animals that didn't own opposable thumbs. But you'd be
You'd
wrong.
think.
There are multiple times where humans had to point a gun at a four-legged creature just for the betterment of humanity, I guess. For example, we have the Stray Dog War. The Stray Dog War was fought between Greece and Bulgaria after the events of the First World War. Legend says that the war started after a Greek soldier's dog got loose and ran onto Bulgarian territory. And a Bulgarian soldier shot and killed the owner of that dog. And I hate to blame
Damn, you didn't kill a
victim here,
dog.
but leashes, people. Put your dog on a goddamn leash. It doesn't matter how well you think you trained that dog, it's gonna see a squirrel and start a war. To their credit, the Bulgarian government issued an apology for blowing the teeth out of that Greek man's mouth, but Greece wanted compensation to the tune of 2 million francs. Greece occupied 7 Bulgarian towns to show that they meant business, and even planned on shelling the town of Petrich, which means they're gonna put a bunch of bombs on it. The League of Nations, which was the precursor to United Nations, stepped in and brokered a peacefire. The war lasted 10 days and 50 people died, but I know know you're thinking, Tucker, what happened to that dog that started all of this? And I hate to tell you, there's no record. No one knows what the fuck happened to that dog. Next up, we have the Emu Wars. If you watch Salmonella, you already know about this one, but I have to talk about it. In 1932, Australia's government declared unilateral war against the menace that was terrorizing its citizens. The emu, the big-ass desert chicken. Emus were settling in cultivated farmland at the height of the Great Depression, hindering efforts to raise crop production. So what would you do if a bunch of big-ass chickens were bullying your crop makers? Would you A, find a way to introduce a natural predator into the population to control the birth rate? B, poison the emu's food source and take them out where they grow? Or C, arm 2 soldiers with machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition? What do you think the Australian government went with? Think of the Australians.
I was about to say, yeah, think about it. Think about it for a quick second.
They went with the soldiers.
They did, of course they did. They got that from us. That's 100%. That's 100% something America would do too.
These 2 soldiers were going around mowing down emus every chance they had. The government killed approximately 3,000 emus, but considering that 20,000 emus had migrated to the land, it was seen as a pretty big failure. That's like killing 10 ants and being like, that's fine. I'm sure there's no more coming. They'll just tell their friends what they saw. Emus continued to occupy Western Australia to the point that farmers asked the government to intervene again in 1934, 1943, and 1948. These snake-neck fuckers were not giving up, and not even a little bit. But the Australian government was willing to learn from its first mistake, and it also didn't want to look like losers that kept losing wars to birds, so they announced Emu War II, Electric Boogaloo. In 1950, Australia's army minister approved the release of 500,000 rounds of ammunition to farmers, essentially funding an Australian shadow war against emus. But sadly, or happily, depending on how you feel about these tall, creepy birds, the emus won out in the end. And the birds are still terrorizing Australians to this day, which I find insane because they got those big necks. Like, I feel like you could strangle them pretty easily. I feel like one of those slap bracelets from the 90s could take one of these things out pretty cleanly. Moving on from emus, let's
that, and part of the reason they didn't win is the bullets just weren't effective. And I'm gonna let that sink in for a second while I say it again. Some of the bullets were not effective. So, picture taking a machine gun, right, and shooting a deer, right, and you lay about like half a clip into like a whole bunch of them. Say there's 12, right? You lay a half a clip into 12 deer, right, and you know you hit them because you can see blood, and they all run away. Yeah, that's something that happened, unfortunately.
talk about pigs. The Pacific Northwest in America is known for being a little different. It was the backdrop for the fever dream.
I think this is Seattle just because of this thing right here. Not exactly sure.
That is known as Twin Peaks. You got the birthplace of obnoxious coffee culture and also grunge music. And a few decades later, the Oregon vibe was parodied in the show Portlandia. So of course, if there's gonna be a war in the Pacific Northwest, it's gonna be quirky as hell. The Pig War took place in 1859 and was essentially a border dispute between the US and the UK. It started when a farmer on the San Juan Island saw a pig rooting through its crops and shot it, which I think it's fair.
Oh
if
no,
you're a
not
farmer,
Peppa.
you see a pig eating your stuff, you kill that pig. Just one problem, that pig was a foreign national. The farmer apologized and offered $10 to its UK owner, and the owner countered by asking for $100 in 1859, which I would assume is a lifetime worth of money. British authorities threatened to arrest the farmer, so the farmer went to the US and said, "Can you help me?" And 64 American soldiers were sent to San Juan to protect American citizens. So in a very measured response, the British responded by sending 3 whole-ass warships. So America sent even more troops, back and forth and back and forth. The war never really took off. Like, no one died because of this. It was a standoff that lasted for only a few months, and the only casualty was that poor little pig looking for a meal. But it's crazy that a pig almost led us to Revolutionary War II, Electric Boogaloo. And
I'm not gonna lie, I remember hearing about this too, and it wasn't that the pig just showed up once. This was like the second or third time that it's happened, and then he just finally got tired of it and then shot the pig. Understandable. Average American response.
I don't know why I keep referencing that. I don't even know what that is. It's just in my brain. So there you have it. War. Proof that men would kill someone else and themselves rather than admitting they're wrong. And as a fella who just recently aged out of the draft, might I say to all the 18-year-old men out there, go get them in World War III. I'm rooting for you. New videos every Saturday and Wednesday sometimes. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. And once again, thank you to Sempered for sponsoring this video. Use coupon code 55BigTugg for 55% off your first order at sempered.com.
Hey, let's go. See, do what he said. Obviously, you all heard it. Oh, wait, hold on.
This video was made possible by NordVPN.
Yeah, actually, interestingly enough, if we can, we'll do this one because it literally just goes over exactly what we were just saying. Also, it has infographics, so it looks really cool. Other than that, I'll link his channel in the description, and we'll go from there. Either way, ciao for now.